during the Second World War, for by 1940 Burgess had risen to the post of Assistant Secretary to the Cabinet Office, and was thus one of the few people whose job it was to take down word for word whatever ministers said there. There were strict rules against officials keeping diaries, but Burgess's practice of retaining the verbatim notes he made of war cabinet meetings was far more serious. It was not simply a sackable offence. If he had been caught, he would have faced prosecution under the 1911 Official Secrets Act. That he knew he was breaking the law is evident from his unpublished autobiography, in which he explicitly stated that he kept his actions secret from the Cabinet Secretary Sir Edward Bridges and his deputy Norman Brooke. The Cabinet Office rules were unambiguous. All notes, after being used to draw up the official minutes, were to be burnt in the office grate in Whitehall. Instead, Burgess stashed them away. He had an eye for great events, and fully appreciated how fortunate he was to be present when history was being made. To sit at the cabinet table at number 10 with Churchill in the chair was something worth living for, he wrote. Perhaps some would have paid a high price to occupy my seat, and I got paid for sitting in it. He was proud to have been the only person besides Churchill and Field Marshal Jan Christian Smuts to have been present at the war cabinet meetings of both world wars. By the time of the Second World War, Lawrence Burgess was, according to his friend Leslie Joe Hollis, who also worked in the Cabinet Secretariat, a short, rotund and rubicund person who loved a good story and a glass of wine. In later life he became an authority on judging gymkhanas in Oxfordshire, where he retired. He hugely admired Churchill, and was certain that had the Germans invaded Britain in 1940, the Prime Minister would have mustered his cabinet and died with them in the pillbox, disguised as a W. H. Smith bookstall in Parliament Square. He recalled Churchill in the cabinet room, sitting in his chair at the long table in front of the fire, either in his siren suit, or, if some engagement or attendance at the House of Commons followed the meeting, immaculately dressed in a short black coat, striped trousers, silk shirt and bow tie with spots. Wonderful hands, too, so well kept. He gave the impression that he had just dressed after a bath, and had used talcum powder with liberality. As one entered that historic room, one could generally tell from the expression on Churchill's face if the meeting was set for fine, fair, or wet and stormy, though, as with the uncertainty of our weather prophets, one could not be absolutely sure that an unexpected storm would not blow up from somewhere. After the Australian Prime Minister, Robert Menzies, sent Churchill a stuffed, flat-billed platypus as a present, it was put on view to the left of the lobby at number 10. A group of people, including Burgess, were waiting there one day when Churchill arrived, and, beaming all over, pretended to be the showman at a fairground, crying, "This way to the flat-billed platypus, gentlemen." Sir Edward Bridges' instructions for the writing of cabinet minutes insisted on their being A. brief, B. self-contained, C. in the main impersonal, and D. to the full extent the discussion allows, decisive. Often this was the very opposite of what had actually happened in meetings that were prolix, open-ended, highly personal and indecisive. Official cabinet minutes are therefore opaque documents, usually deliberately so. As one War Cabinet Secretariat clerihew put it, "And so while the great ones depart to their dinner, the secretary stays, growing thinner and thinner, racking his brains to recall and report what he thinks that they think they ought to have thought." Sometimes the cabinet minutes adopted a form of code for the initiated, similar to the Foreign Office euphemism whereby a full and frank discussion meant a blazing row. When at the Cabinet Defence Committee of the 2nd of March 1942, for example, Churchill and General Sir Alan Brooke clashed over the problems caused by the fan belt drive and the lubrication system of the cruiser tank, and the minutes record, "Some discussion then took place on the subject of these defects, in the course of which surprise was expressed that they should have not been detected earlier." One can be fairly sure that there was a hard-fought and possibly ill-tempered argument. By reading the original contemporaneous